and the conversation continues. So we are looking forward now to our conversation with Joey Heyman. He's an Atlanta transplant from Southern California by way of Jerusalem after earning a master's in experiential Jewish education. Oh, I'm sorry, Joey. She.
You are not even remotely the first to make the error.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you or reading all of your bio yet. So hello to Joey, and we are so glad to have you with us today. I just want to make sure we tell our audience a little bit about you as we prepare to enter into conversation. So after earning your master's in experiential Jewish education from American Jewish University and completing your postgraduate fellowship in Jewish education and advanced Jewish studies through the Pardes Institute of Jerusalem Center for Jewish Education, you came to Atlanta to teach classic Jewish text and history at Greenfield Hebrew Academy and the Weber School. We are so excited to have you enter into this conversation. You probably heard in the previous conversation with Reverend Laughlin and Reverend McDonald, the reference to the Old Testament conversation on love and justice and what justice looks like and how it acts itself out. Give us some more context about how you see the intersection of justice and faith, how you might see love act itself out through the faith community, and really honing in on when we say faith, we don't just mean Christian, right? When we say faith, we're talking to a generation and a community of folks that come from various faith traditions. So I'd love to hear you obviously represent your perspective and your expertise in this area as we continue this conversation on the connection between faith and love and faith and justice.
Absolutely. Well, first off, I cannot tell you, I am so honored and humbled to be a part of this conversation. So thank you for having me here. It's going to sound cliche, but I truly believe with every fiber of my being that love and justice and faith are just three corners of the same triangle, and that they all work together in the continuum of living our best lives. And for me, in the Judaism that I was raised in, that really is ultimately what a religious experience is supposed to be about. It's setting us on the path toward living our best life. And that is a universal truth. That is for everyone, regardless of which God you believe in, if it's a God you believe in, color of your skin, the language your words come out in. We're all trying to exist together on this planet towards a or the greater good, depending on how you define it. And for me, and the way I was raised, love is very much so at the center of that the way we exist with each other is to acknowledge each other, and then acknowledge that we can only be our best selves if we are helping the person next to us be their best self. And that comes from that place of active love. And I loved what Reverend McDonald said in the last segment, and I agree with him with my whole heart. Love is action. Love is a verb. In the Jewish prayer tradition, we say a certain segment from the book of Deuteronomy morning and night. It's called the Shema. And it says, you love the Lord your God with your heart, with your life, and with your might. And that very much so from the beginning for me was about it. Love is not just a passive feeling. It isn't like I look at something and my heart beats a little bit faster and then, I go on with my day. It's I recognize that pitter patter, and then that leads me to action. I am going to engage with that person with a smile. I am going to make sure that that person is feeling that same smile I am. It's the action that comes from that internal reaction is what matters.
Absolutely. I think also, and that's beautiful, because that's a wonderful way of saying bringing your whole self into the conversation of love, right? That pitter patter turns to the action. When we bring ourselves, both of us being leaders in our faith tradition and being women, we show up in a different way, right? And I love that you have a gender neutral name, because when you're coming and they only see your name, as I just did, they don't know if they're getting Joey a woman or Joey a man. And you show up in this space with your brilliance and with your experience and your background. How does gender affect your ability or enhance your ability to be loved in your faith context?
Oh, such a rich and beautiful question. I'll be lying if I say it's not a struggle. If the fact that I am coming into, and I'm not what some would say a passive woman. I'm not the quiet one. I'm not the go with the flow one. I'm the, if something doesn't feel right, I'm going to make sure we're aware of it, and I'm going to speak truth to power, and I'm going to speak out for those in the room who maybe are not feeling as comfortable to speak up for themselves. And as a woman, my experience, and this is not necessarily related to religion but just at large, has been that's not always welcome, and that's not always seen as the positive trait that it is for my male counterparts. And so it has been a struggle to grow through that. Judaism is also a religion that in its most original form, and I will not say authentic form because I don't believe that to be synonymous here, it was for men. It was for, the majority of rituals and prayers and, kind of traditional output was designed with men in mind, because they were the ones writing the history and writing the books. And so getting to be alive at this time in history, where so many incredible women before me paved the way to bring women to the forefront of Jewish practice, has been, again, like a humbling, eye-opening experience, because I've realized in a lot of ways I have not had to be the one to do the fighting. I have gotten to accept that people are more willing to have me in their circle. My fight is then helping them feel more comfortable and confident with that kind of more edgy, forceful attitude, and saying like, I understand my tone was a little sharp there, but you wouldn't have given Gary the same hard time you just gave me. So let's think the way we're treating each other there. And again, that comes from that place of love, because it's not responding in anger. It's responding in wanting to be seen.
Yes.
That is an act of self-love, and that I can't actively support the ones next to me if I myself am not being cared for as well.
Oh, that's powerful. And I had the opportunity of a few panels earlier talking to some young creatives about self-love and how that self-love is essential, because eventually that cup runneth over, right? And so as you begin to take that agency and love yourself enough to bring your voice forward, like you said, other women have done it so that you can bring your voice forward. You're doing it now so that others can bring their voice forward. And the power of that is that struggle that you've gone through in this context allows you to be even more empathetic as you speak that truth to power. So it's extremely powerful.
Yeah. And I am blessed right now. I work for an organization that is a leadership team of women, and really strong, powerful, independent, important women. And so it's been a real blessing to have that opportunity to be in a true, like, women empowering women environment.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely powerful. And it makes me also think of, we celebrate Moses so often and we don't always remember Miriam, right? And so in your context, you're bringing forth Miriam's song of justice, right? As we go forward. So connecting again, the faith to justice piece, like in your faith tradition, I've done some work in the Atlanta area, for instance, with a group of women from the temple, and we called that work, we were the daughters of Sarah, right? We have the same mother, but we express our faith, our love, and for God in different ways, but it still insists on justice. If you had to think about a practical example of how to be loved in this moment, right? With all of these multiple pandemics that we've all witnessed and confronted over the last 12 months, what would that look like in your faith context, and then perhaps outside of your faith context?
Ooh, So I had the unique experience last year where, my job, we run an aftercare program for picking kids up from school, taking care of them after school. And last year the schools didn't open. They were running virtually. And so the families they didn't have the need for the aftercare. So we said, okay, well, what do you need? You need a place for the kids to be doing their schooling during the day. And so we opened a full day, podded program. And we were the ones facilitating their Zoom and Microsoft Teams learning with them throughout the day so that their parents could be free to, work from home. And the most, for me as the educator in the room, the number one thing I tried to train our other teachers in is that we are working with traumatized children this year, for lack of a better word. The experience that they went through from March 2020 until August of 2020 when we were opening up is the most isolating, different. They were experiencing their own families in different ways. They were getting their socialization, and we work predominantly with early elementary, so pre-K through fifth grade. So no matter which ones they were, their lives had been turned upside down. And I wanted that to be the primary focus that we went into every day with, to make sure that our students are being loved, heard, cared for, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, first and foremost, before we even start to think about, is the Wi-Fi working and what's your computer login? Right. None of the rest of that is going to matter if we don't address that mental, emotional, spiritual well-being first. And that, to me, I think translates across the board in faith work. Why it's kind of that Maslow's hierarchy or need needs. Like, if I feel safe, if I feel welcomed, I can share, I can be present, I can move forward. But until we address those bare basic needs of human beings being seen, heard, and welcomed, I don't think we're going to get anywhere else.
Right. That is so powerful. That is so very powerful, because that's the essence of love, is seeing and hearing another human being and meeting them at their needs. Because all of those children had different needs, and yet you all tuned in to how to meet them. And in many ways, that's what justice looks like. That's what equitable justice looks like, meeting people at their point of need.
Yes. And then when we create, for the most part, our students, because we're coming from a particular segment of, the Atlanta Jewish community, their skin colors are not identical, but they fall on one end of the spectrum more so than the other. And, a lot of times, especially with the last year, I and my fellow colleagues have had that moment of like, what am I doing to promote justice? I'm working with, white children. How am I helping move things forward? And it's that reminder that we are raising the next generation of activists and allies. And, the ones who I pray to God at some point we have the day where we don't need the word ally anymore, because there isn't that struggle and the need that just we all will actually exist together as equal humans in love, and just not have that sense of division that people feel the need to stand up for another.
Absolutely. And pouring into that is a legacy. Thank you for being love, and being love in our community, being love in your faith community, being love for those children. Because like you said, that is our next generation. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Great to meet you.
You too.
Thank you. You as well.